Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. Today's episode is honestly a conversation I've wanted to have for a long time with fellow YouTube content creator Eric Estepp from Out of the Groove. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Eric. One, because he's been doing this a lot longer than I have, and two, he's really damn good at what he does. That combination matters. Longevity matters. Consistency matters. And the ability to connect with an audience the way he does is not easy. Now, yeah, technically Eric and I are competitors. We cover the same sport. We're both talking to the same NASCAR fans. But I've always believed that competition doesn't mean you can't respect someone's work or learn from how they do things. If anything, it makes conversations like this more interesting and more honest. So instead of avoiding that, I wanted to lean into it. After talking about it for a while, we finally got it on the schedule and made it happen. And I'm really glad we did. This is a genuine conversation between two guys who love the sport, love creating content, and respect the grind it takes to do this week in and week out. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. However, before we get to that interview, I want to talk about a name you guys became familiar with last season on my channel, and that's Kufandy. I'm happy to be working with them again in 2026. You already know how much I love their products, like this suede jacket, which I've worn a lot this winter. Now I want to introduce you to their great line of business casual attire, like this classic striped trim jacket pant set, which looks great and just like all their products, feels great too. The super soft fabric is comfortable to wear in any number of environments. It's perfect for me when I go to my local coffee shop to write a story or a script for my next video, or to meet with a potential client. I'm telling you guys, this jacket pant set is another hit from Kufandy. For more information on this jacket pant set or the entire line of Kufandy products, check out the link in the description. And thanks again to Kufandy for sponsoring this episode. And now I'd like to welcome to the channel what is a long overdue interview and a conversation with Eric Estepp. Hey, Eric, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, happy to be here, Kyle. Yeah, I guess this is the first time we've actually recorded one of these, but I've spent a lot of time talking to you at the racetrack over the last couple of years. So it just feels like it's not overdue, but I guess it is. We're finally putting it to film, as they say.
Absolutely. Recording it for history's sake. All right. So I want to start off with some silly season news that came out yesterday, and that was Carson Hocevar signing a long-term contract for, at one point he said on Twitter, a decade, but then people said, I think the official announcement was into the next decade. So what do you think of that news?
Yeah, it's you don't see so into the next decade. Let's just say that means 2030. Still,
Sure.
that's
Yep.
5 years from now. I mean,
Right.
that's a half decade away. We don't see those kinds of long-term extensions in modern NASCAR very often. And I've seen the fans who their first reaction is, man, is Carson limiting himself? Why would he not test free agency? His career's going like this. Maybe Hendrick's going to come calling in the next couple of years. Why would he lock himself up with Spire? I get it from the Spire standpoint. I think Jeff Dickerson feels very personally responsible for Carson's career development. So I think that
Right.
relationship is good. And from Carson's perspective, you get stability. That's not easy to come by in the NASCAR Cup Series. There are a few superstar drivers that know, like Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, they'll race in their seats probably as long as they want. But it's hard to come by. This sport chews up drivers and spits them out every single year. So for Carson to have at least 4 or 5 more years now of stability, I think is underrated, is extremely important. And I do think Spire is getting better. Behind Jeff Dickerson, the whole ownership group, TWG Global, they've got the cash to make that team more and more of a contender. I don't know if they'll ever get quite to the level of the Penske's and Hendricks and Gibbs, but I think they can get a lot closer than they are now. So I would not be shocked if Carson's winning races on the regular here in the not so distant future.
Well, you said something that leads right into my first official question, and that's with him signing this contract. I'm always thinking about first-time winners. So now that he's signed this contract, who do you think is the first-time winner? And I'm going to say Ryan Preece because that's just an exhibition. Carson, Ty Gibbs, or Connor Zilisch? Who gets their first win this year?
Oh, man. I think there's a world where they all win this year. I mean, Ty Gibbs, will start with him. I feel like he's been just kind of in a rut since getting to the Cup Series, but he's in probably the best car of the group you just listed, so you can't rule out Ty. Ryan Preece just showed us he knows how to get it done, but it's going to be at least a few weeks until we go to a track that's really in his wheelhouse.
Right.
Roush is good at super speedway, so he could win Daytona or Atlanta, but I wouldn't necessarily pick him. And then Zilish, you got Coda coming up. He does have some cup experience there. That could be a great stepping stone. I think Zilish will win this year. I think he's too good at road courses to not nab one of those. I mean, he gave SVG about all he could handle in some of the Xfinity and O'Reilly races last year. And then Carson Hocevar, last season, he had a couple of near wins taken away by mechanical issues. If they can clean that up, I don't see why he can't break through. I've got Carson winning a race this year. I've got Zilic winning a race this year. I didn't officially predict the other two would win, but shoot, Ryan Preece has already shown he can do it. So I in a weird way, while I said Ty Gibbs is most likely because of his car, he's probably the fourth guy on that list if I had to rank them 1 through 4, which is unfortunate, but it's just kind of where he's at in his development right now.
Right. So I saw in your latest video, you were talking about the first half, the dry part of the class was really entertaining and there was good racing. Of course, we all know what happened in the second half. So in that first half, what do you think attributed to it? But do you think the 750 horsepower package had an effect? Because I was listening to qualifying and I think it was practice and maybe it might have been the LCQ, but I know Austin Cindric talked about he never really had full throttle on the car. So that's what we want. So do you think that that had an effect on the actual racing?
Yeah, I saw that exact same clip and my ears perked up as well when Cindric said that. I do think the horsepower made a bit of a difference. I also think Goodyear brought another new left side tire compound for Bowman Gray, different than last year. I think that combination, we can talk about aero, we can talk about the tires themselves being too wide. There are some fatal flaws to how this car was designed for short track racing, but Goodyear has continued to push in the right direction. Combine that with a little extra horsepower. And I mean, we even saw at the end of last year, Martinsville was a good race. The Bristol night race was overwhelming at times. The short track product is getting there. Goodyear deserves a lot of credit. And I think now we can credit the engine builders as well for going along with this big change.
Yeah, so that's a change for this season, and the chase is a change. So I know you see a lot of comments and feedback from fans about last year and what the format was, and now this year. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on the chase coming back this year.
I overall like it. I think it solves two big issues that the previous format could not address. The big one is it's much simpler. It's very easy to explain now to the average fan or even non-fan who's looking to get into NASCAR. I would try to explain to the in-laws how the playoffs worked, and they tried. God bless them. They would try to understand it, but they couldn't fully wrap their head around it. I could just tell. So this format is much simpler. That's step one. And step two, because it's a 10-race run, there are no additional resets at the end. There's no forced tiebreaker finale like we've had under the previous format. The championship will feel more earned, and I don't think we'll have the exhausting debate at year's end of did so-and-so deserve it? Joey Logano, even Kyle Larson this last year, not because he didn't have a championship caliber season, but because of how that race played out.
Right.
The last couple of years, it's did so-and-so deserve it? And that's exhausting and not a good look for the sport if you're trying to maintain your integrity. So at least those two issues have been solved. I've got some small gripes with it here and there, but overall, I think it accomplished the two big things it needed to.
Okay, there was quite a bit of off-season news, and I think, with the trial and all that going on, and then the tragedies, obviously, I think what really got lost in this Chris Gabehart news and his departure. So A, how surprising did you find it? And B, how do you think it's going to affect the organization this season?
I'll say first, very surprised for sure. Chris Gabehart, I don't know how long he'd been at Joe Gibbs Racing, but he was moving up the ranks as you would expect. Successful few years with Denny Hamlin on the box, and then competition director JGR last season had their most wins in a season since 2019. So clearly he was making a positive difference there. So for him to go, for him to be gone, I don't think Joe Gibbs Racing is going to fall off a cliff. I fully expect Briscoe, Bell, Hamlin to be in that championship conversation, but I think there is reason to believe they could be, a half step behind to start the year. I don't think that would be shocking. Again, we saw it in Denny's career. The moment Gabehart got on the pit box, his career turned around. I feel like Denny was kind of like, ooh, he's getting older. He still wins. He's not good. Gabehart shows up and boom, he's been a championship contender almost every year. Gabehart made the same difference for the whole team as the competition director last year. So I think they'll take a small step back, but those three names I just mentioned will all win races and will probably all be in the fight in October, if I had to guess.
Right, right. So a couple of just fun questions for you, Eric. If you could force NASCAR to make one rule change for 2026 and they'd never consider on their own, what would it be and why?
Oh man.
Put you on
Oh,
the spot.
that's a huge one. I'm going to go. I'm sure there's a big, more sexy, exciting answer I could give, but with Daytona on the horizon, I just want the super speedway package to be better. Like the Daytona 500 is our biggest race. We celebrate its winner more than any other individual race winner all season. Yet the past few years in the next gen era, it just feels too random. You pick a lane, you push, push, push. You hope the guy in front of you doesn't spin out. And then you see where you end up when it's all said and done. You're not slicing and dicing through the air like Dale Earnhardt used to. So drivers have complained there's way too much drag on the cars at the speedways. I don't know how you get rid of it, but I would do everything in my power. I'd wave a magic wand and say, hey, reduce the drag. And hopefully that leads to more runs being generated, better racing, and a driver out front at the end who you feel like really earned that track position and earned the Harley J. Earl Trophy. That would be my very specific change. And it's just because I got Daytona in the mind, because that's what's coming up this next week.
Absolutely. Which current driver do you think is the most underrated by the media, and what story about them isn't being told?
I would have maybe said Ryan Preece until this week. This is the funny answer. I've been big on Preece for a few years now, and he went to Stewart-Haas. A lot of folks were like, really? And then, Stewart-Haas goes under, and then Keselowski picks him up, and everyone's like, really? Still hasn't won a race? He showed us Wednesday night, I guess, just how talented, how skilled he really is. So I would have maybe said Ryan Preece, but if I have to think of another underrated driver, can I cheat and go with the O'Reilly series? I'm gonna go with my guy, my good buddy. He might watch this. I'll go with my guy Brennan Poole.
Okay.
I think the media paid some attention to him. Fans paid some attention. He was in the Dash for Cash one week last year, but I think. And me and him talk about this a lot. Like, as great as the folks at Alpha Prime Racing are, it's a great team, fun organization. They don't have near the resources of the top 25 teams in the O'Reilly series, yet Brennan's constantly running top 15. He's been top 20 in points the last couple of years. I know the average fan will remember Brennan Poole when he was at Ganassi, the DC Solar days, that debacle. He had some good runs, but he never won. He was always in Kyle Larson's shadow, but that was a decade plus ago. I think Brennan Poole, now in his early 30s, has aged like a fine wine. And I would love to see him, whether it's O'Reilly Cup, I'd love to see him in a competitive seat once again, because I think he could do some special stuff.
That's a good pick. And, Tommy Joe Martins and he's actually one of the first people that I started talking to in NASCAR. And we've always talked about the underdog role. And so I've paid particular attention to that team. And you're right, seeing Brennan do that, it's always like he's really racing over his head, and it's really fun to watch. So that's a good pick. So if you had to build a championship team from scratch, would you start with a young driver or a veteran crew chief, and why?
Ooh, that's a really interesting question. I would probably go with the driver first.
Okay.
Because I do think, I think, especially nowadays, these young drivers, if you can really coach them along. I think of William Byron, who maybe stumbled out the gate a bit, but took him 2 or 3 years. He worked, like, I think of it that way. They paired William Byron with Chad Knaus those first, I think, maybe 2 years he was in Cup.
Right.
And, I think it helped William Byron, but it wasn't until Willie B kind of went out on his own and I think kind of came into his own that now he's turned into a perennial winner and championship contender. I just think the young driver, they're the star. They're who's going to move the merchandise, sell the sponsorship. I think you got to get that right first. But the crew chief does matter. I think just in general, the right engineers, the right folks at the shop who, have fully embraced what the next gen car is, this era of simulation. I mean, some of it is just simply money, but I think there is something, again, to be said for the Chris Gabehart types who come in with an ideology and their teams immediately get better. Like Spire signed Rodney Childers, and after 2 months, they parted ways. It's like Rodney, I think, is a great crew chief, but maybe not as willing, and maybe we're getting this all wrong. I think this is just the outsider's perspective of it. I think Rodney maybe not as quick to embrace the next gen. So, Yeah, I think you start with the young driver because they're the star, but you need the whole pie to bake nicely.
Right. Which track on the schedule would you eliminate if you had the power to, and what would you replace it with?
Oh man, I don't like eliminating races. Do I have to pick can I pick a date or do I have to pick a whole track? Because like there's some race tracks with 2 dates that maybe don't need 2 dates.
I like that. Go with that. That's a good one.
Oh, but what would I replace it with? Oh man. All right, I'll go. No, that wouldn't make any sense. I was gonna go selfish and pick a Texas, put it add a race to Texas, not Texas Motor Speed. I was sitting here like, what if the Arlington Grand Prix is good for IndyCar? Maybe NASCAR can hitch their wagon to that in the future, but we don't. I don't know that we need 3 races in Texas as big as Texas may be.
Right.
Oh, that is a tough question. I feel like I should have a better answer prepared. I'm not a big Sonoma Raceway fan. I think that track race is kind of lousy, especially in the next gen, but I don't want to remove it from the schedule because our fans on the West Coast have so little, so I wouldn't touch it. Uh, I don't have a great answer for you. I selfishly, I've always wanted more races in Texas, but now we added Coda, and so it's like I feel like my appetite is pretty decent.
Yeah, no, I hear you. All right, we'll move on to the next one. If NASCAR wanted to authentically grow its fan base among people under 30, what's the one thing they could do better?
I think it's important to meet young fans where they are, and I think NASCAR is slowly but surely realizing that. And I think their digital presence has improved a lot in really just the past 12 months, I would say. And it's not just, oh, they're posting videos to TikTok, but no, it's like it's the content. They're attaching themselves to trends. They're highlighting some of the most genuine young drivers, like a Carson Hocevar, for example, who's willing to engage with the audience. I mean, I think that doing that YouTube series on Carson and Raja and Jesse Love, like those are 3 young drivers that have all grown up in the social media space, that all know the language, know how to speak to younger audiences. And I think highlighting them, putting them out on full display was the right way to go. And I think it also taught NASCAR some lessons on how to engage the younger audience. So it's, it sounds real boomer of me to just go, oh, social media is huge, but it is. It's not just being on social media, it's speaking the right language. There are tons of corporate brand accounts out there that are super forgettable, but we remember Wendy's insulting fans on Twitter. We remember the Duolingo owl doing whatever the hell it's doing every other week. Like they're the Pop-Tarts Bowl, like creating being a part of that social conversation is more important than just being on there. Like impressions are impressions. If you can actually be engaging, that's what's most important.
I love it. Love the answer. All right, so now we're going to go through a couple rapid fire and we'll wrap it up. So,
Okay.
Kyle Busch, does he get a win in 2026?
I'm going to say I'm on the fence, but I'll say no.
Okay. Kyle Busch, is he at RCR in 2027?
Again, I'm on the fence, but I would say probably no. I'm just not sure he's going to find an upgrade that he's looking for.
Right. Well, I mean, I was thinking if he gets a win, maybe he does stay, but if he doesn't get a win, then he goes.
So I think I think these first 4 or 5 months, very important. If he's competitive or if he gets a win, I think both sides will be happy. Otherwise, Kyle's going to look, he's going to have a wandering eye by the summer. That's my guess.
Yeah. What drivers do you think are on the hot seat in 2026? I mean, we can just always throw out Alex Bowman. So who else do you feel? Because it seems like there's a lot of contracts. This is a contract year for a lot of drivers. So who do you feel like might be on the hot seat this year?
Yeah, I think Alex Bowman actually is on a hot seat this year because this is a contract year. I think there's a lot of reason Hendrick would keep him, but there's some good free agents out there that Hendrick might also take a look at. I'm going to say, and I feel like I pick on this guy too much, but I mean, frankly, got to run better. I'm going to say Riley Herbst. He signed a multi-year deal with 23XI originally, but this is year 2. And oftentimes multi-year means 2 years with a 3rd-year team option. And Corey Heim just had the greatest truck season we've ever seen.
Right.
The real question with Riley, and this is why I don't know how hot his seat really is I don't know how deeply ingrained he and his family are financially to the 23XI ecosystem. We know he brings funding and sponsorship, but like, how big is that check? I think 2311 just got a pretty nice check from that lawsuit settlement. I'm sure it paid for at least the legal bills and then some. So maybe they have the flexibility to go put the best guy in that seat. And with all due respect to Riley, he's had a few good races in his Xfinity days.
Yeah.
He is not the best driver for that seat. I know he was a rookie last year, but you still got to keep him on a short leash because I don't think he's really a top Cup Series talent. I don't think he's ever going to develop into one.
All right. What is a storyline or two that you're going to be following this season?
I think broadly speaking, the chase, how does it change the way drivers race, especially early in the year? I think it'll be interesting at road courses even. Do you go for stage points versus the win? I think you might see people value stage points even more. It'll be interesting to see if that impacts the finish of any races. And then I think Connor Zilic is going to be a storyline. You asked me earlier if he's going to win. I think he will. The clash the other night, even before it got all screwy, he drove up to 12th. I know that's Bowman Gray, but he wasn't backing down from these Cup Series veterans. I think he's going to struggle, like most rookies do, but sure. I also think he has the potential to pop up from time to time and surprise us. So I think that's a broad one, and then a specific driver story that I'm really intrigued to watch this year.
I love them both. All right, last question for you, Eric. Who is your pick to win the 2026 Cup Series championship at Homestead?
So I'll be honest, I've not given this a ton of thought yet. So chat audience, don't hold me to this. I reserve the right to make some adjustments later down the line. I will say my regular season champion, or my number one seed going into the chase, is Ryan Blaney. Now I got to look at those last 10. It's a lot of intermediate tracks now, especially since the Roval is gone. And Penske, they're fine at the intermediate tracks, but their bread and butter's the short, flat tracks. Even Blaney's been good at the Roval before. So now I'd have to sit down and really analyze the last 10 races. But Ryan Blaney, I'll say Blaney for now, just because I think last year they had maybe the best all-around speed of anyone. Mm-hmm. They almost won the regular season championship despite 7 regular season DNFs. It was, blown engine at Homestead. It was, I think he had another mechanical or engine issue in one of the Daytona races. It was like there were some catastrophic, fluky failures that cost them so many points. But when they didn't have those issues, they were super, super fast pretty much everywhere. So I imagine that's going to continue. And my guess is the DNFs will come down a little bit this year. Right. So that's my pick. I'll go Blaney for now. But again, I got to study those final 10 dates a little better.
Well, Eric, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me and come on the channel. I would love to have you back on maybe mid-season. We can talk about what's going on, what's happened in the first half, and talk about the second half. But again, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely do this again. I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to seeing you out at the racetrack later this year.
Absolutely. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks again to Eric for coming on the channel and answering my questions and previewing the 2026 season. It was a really fun conversation. And one final order of business. I know I've been talking about it for the last few weeks. Well, it's time to officially announce that the new and improved Beating and Banging website is live. And for all those fans who were asking me to create a NASCAR schedule like I built for iPhone users that's in the App Store, you got your wish. The entire 2026 NASCAR schedule for all 3 series is in there. Go check it out and let me know what you think about it. You'll see it not only has the schedule, but a countdown clock for each race. Plus, there's a contest page where we'll be giving away some cool prizes this season. And my shop page where you can buy cool NASCAR merchandise and Beating and Banging gear. And most importantly, it's going to be kept up to date with fresh content. You'll be able to see my latest videos when they're uploaded, plus original stories that I'm going to write for the site. And also be sure and sign up for my newsletter, which I'll be sending out every Friday, reviewing the week in NASCAR and previewing the upcoming race weekend. Hope you like it, and if you have any ideas for things you'd like to see me improve or add to the site, I'm open to suggestions. Drop a comment in here. All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. Let me know what you thought about the various topics Eric and I discussed. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. Again, appreciate you checking out this episode and supporting the channel, and hope you have a great rest of your day.